Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and I'm joined today by Bob Bentz, a fellow Philadelphian. So I'm very excited, and the CEO of Purple Gator. So, Bob, we're really glad to have you.
Okay, great to be here.
So, Bob, we always start out with the founder's journey. So, tell us about your kind of career journey, and I know we talked a little bit before the podcast, but everything leading up, and then we'll talk about how Purple Gator came to be.
Okay. Well, my career began in the television advertising business. So I sold television advertising for a station in West Virginia where I got my start, and then two different stations in Connecticut. And, that's where I really got to understand media and marketing. So in 1989, I saw an opportunity to begin my own business. I didn't want to do what you needed to do in broadcasting, and that was move all around the country to continue to move up. And, I was brought up in one area, and I wanted my kids to be brought up in one area as well. So 1989, I started a telecom company called Advanced Telecom Services, located it in suburban Philadelphia. We grew from a startup with no outside investment to 2.2 million in annual sales, and offices in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Czech Republic, and Taiwan. So telecom was booming, and then this darn thing called the internet came along. And I keep telling people that thing's going to catch on one of these days. Anyway, the internet came along and kind of started to squash the telecom business. By the year 2018, what I used to get 16 cents for, I could get an eighth of a penny, because, the internet could just deliver phone calls much more efficiently.
That'll cut your margins, huh?
Yeah. So in March of 2018, I decided, to continue to support my family as I've been accustomed to, I better start to do something else. And that's when we began Purple Gator.
Love it. Love it. So tell us about your vision for Purple Gator and a little bit about the journey pre and post-COVID.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting.
COVID really whacked us on our tails, but we got off to a really good start in 2018. About 2 years of nice growth for a startup that was really just only a handful of people. We landed a Fortune 500 real estate company and also a 650 store national retailer there in those first 2 years. So we were well on our way, profitable in the second year, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was like George Costanza on Seinfeld. People were calling me to pause their campaigns because the governor of Pennsylvania required us to close all of our businesses during COVID. And I was just avoiding the phone calls as best I could. But inevitably, within a week, I had to answer and return those phone calls. And that's when about 60% of my business paused.
I feel your pain there. Yeah.
Sitting there scratching my head, okay, what the heck am I going to do to get through this? My goal was not to grow during COVID, but just to keep everybody employed. And one of my greatest accomplishments in my career, I think, is not the growth of a company to 62 million, but to keep all of those employees on the payroll for that 2-year COVID period.
Absolutely.
And we were doing that.
That's awesome.
But how we pivoted then was I realized the restaurants and retail stores were not coming back anytime soon. This COVID was going to be a long haul. There was no vaccine, and who knows what was going to happen. So we all began working from home, for one thing, because we weren't permitted to come into the office. And if you'd asked me in 2019 whether a company could be successful with a complete work from home staff, I would have told you absolutely not. People will be out playing golf. They'll be sleeping in. They won't be at their desk. And boy, was I wrong, because everybody worked hard during COVID and got us through that mess.
Do you think part of that is because everybody got thrown into the deep end of the pool and had to operate that way? So it wasn't like that anyone could slight and get away with it anyway. Everyone was working that way. Or do you think it was, hey, we just probably underestimated people's passion for their work, or both?
Well, I never underestimate my staff's passion for their work. I know how dedicated they are. So I would never think that. But I think, let's face it, we didn't have anything else to do but work, right?
Yeah, right. That's actually true.
No one was going to the movies. No one was going out and partying at night,
Yeah.
right? So we were home all day, and you may as well work. You can't work out 20 hours a day. So
That's true.
everybody was home. I think everyone jumped right in. And what I found was, whereas my staff, at 5:30 would walk out the door pretty close to 5:30. Now I'm finding that, hey, they're working till 6:15. Because they used to drive their cars home for 45 minutes at that time, which was, useless time to everybody. So we were actually getting an hour and a half more work out of everybody during COVID.
Yeah, amazing. So kind of elaborate into the pivot, because you did something really, really unique, in my opinion, right? And you started in nursing, and then you even went, a different route just based on some new customers coming to you.
Yeah, for sure. So, when this all happened, I'm like, okay, how am I going to get through this? And, my thought process was, well, I know nurses have always been in demand, and they're going to be more in demand now than ever because a lot of people are getting sick. And we have an aging population that's going to need nursing as the boomers are aging. So my thought process was, well, become specialists in nurse recruitment. And what we found was we were able to land a couple of major university hospitals, an Ivy League hospital, some Big 12 conference hospitals, and we had a certain degree of success. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to nurses, I can't create them overnight. It's at least a 2-year education. So the only way to get more nurses for your hospital or your medical practice is to steal them from other companies. So 100%. That's exactly what we did. We started geoconquesting, which is the ability to find mobile and desktop devices at competing addresses. And through the geoconquesting, we were able to build a nice database of people that were there 15, 20 days out of the 30, do a look back for the past 6 months, and then target those people with online ads to switch over to the hospital that was employing us. Now, what I learned was the one thing nobody wanted to do in nursing was work that 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. That graveyard shift everyone didn't want that. So that was the most successful time for us to find those mobile devices. Plus, we know that we were targeting the right people, because one of the disadvantages to geoconquesting is I don't know if you're a patient or if you're a visitor or you're an employee.
Right.
But late at night, there were no visitors. So we had a better chance of getting our message in front of those folks and having them see the ad for our client and then hopefully applying. Now, what I found with nursing was nurses weren't in it for the money. They, an extra few bucks a month was not going to excite them. They were in it to give back to the community. So they were less likely to jump than some of our other clients who were more interested in the salary and the improvements.
Interesting.
Yeah, so one day we got a call from someone who represented a marketing person, HR person at a major retailer of auto parts. And
all things, right?
All things. And they called us and said, hey, we know you're into this nurse recruiting thing. Could you recruit truck drivers for us? Now, I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be in the truck driver recruitment business. I didn't even know there was a shortage of truck drivers.
I wouldn't have known that either.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that. If I had to drive a truck, I'm pretty sure, my license would be taken away in a matter of a week. So what we were finding during COVID was, first of all, a lot of the population of truck drivers were aging. They were 55, 60 plus, and they were saying, the heck with driving an 18-wheeler New York to LA. I can drive for Amazon, which was, booming during COVID, and right. I can drive a van, which is a lot easier to drive, and I could be home every night instead of risking my health out driving an 18-wheeler all across the country. So we ran a program, and it was very successful. And when you're in an agency situation, you can be all over the map in the types of companies that you work with. But when you can niche down, I learned what a CDL-A driver was versus a CDL-B driver. I didn't know that before.
I still don't know that, so that's great that you do.
Yeah, so I learned a few of the buzzwords in the industry, and we were able to really exploit this market by calling on companies that were not necessarily directly in the trucking business, but trucking was a big part of their business.
Right.
So you might know that if you go to an O'Reilly Auto Parts or an AutoZone, you can't expect them to have every single part for every year and make and model of a car.
It's impossible, right? They need Amazon type warehouse. That's right.
You could never do that. But when you go in and you order that part, if you're a do-it-yourselfer or you work at a garage, that part will get delivered to you the next day via a truck. So there's where trucking is very important to a company like that, but it isn't their main part of their business. Papa John's Pizza was another customer of ours. They deliver fresh dough to all of the Papa John's retailers every morning. So they obviously need truckers. Those were our best niche for recruiting drivers.
That's awesome. Well, and since I am a native Philadelphian, although I don't live there now, I have to ask, how is Wawa not one of your?
Yes, they should be. You're right.
They should be. Yes, and
Right.
it might be one that you put on the radar.
Camp out on in their driveway, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, for everyone in the podcast that doesn't know, Wawa does they run everything through their trucks in their stores, and they have a 4-hour radius. So they'll build stores out 4 hours from their delivery center so they can get their trucks there and back. And just an interesting thing, because when you can recruit truck drivers, that gets very competitive, and it makes total sense of the way you niche down, Bob. And so talk to us about, like, is this a specialty now? And have you expanded it? Because I think the answer is yes, but talk to us about what Purple Gator's doing now.
Yeah, well, at first it just was really advertising, digital and mobile advertising to try and generate leads. And one of the things that we heard from a lot of our customers is there's a lot of movement in the truck driver business because they're in demand. They went from pre-COVID making a very ordinary salary to making quite a good salary with only a high education. So, when what we found and what we kept hearing from our customers, which became an extra selling point for us, is we were attracting passive candidates. We were not advertising on Indeed looking for truck drivers. We were not advertising in the small magazines you find at the truck stops looking for truck drivers. We were advertising primarily on Meta, and then also doing the geo-conquesting, where we were advertising on websites and apps all around. Now, some of the things we learned, for instance, was one of our best platforms were the very conservative websites, politically conservative, because truck drivers tend to be politically very conservative.
Makes sense.
So
makes sense.
There were things like that we discovered when we got into it, that these were really good selling points and really helped us to find those drivers. But the overwhelming thing that kept customers coming back is the drivers that we recruited stayed longer than the drivers that they got from Indeed and job boards and places like that. The reason why is because when you get a Facebook ad, you're not necessarily looking for a job, but maybe you've had a hard week at your job and you get this opportunity and it looks pretty good to you, and you fill out the form and get contacted by a recruiter and you're able to jump to that new opportunity. So the fact that these people were not actively seeking jobs, they were higher quality candidates, they stayed longer, and that's why I think a few years later, we still have a lot of the same customers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you think that obviously you're going to stick with truck drivers because you're really good at it. Have you expanded it to other hard to find jobs, or do you think you will?
Absolutely. This isn't the kind of program that you would do if you just need to fill one job. Okay. Right. But it is the kind of program that you would want to do if you need warehouse workers. So warehouse workers has been a really good niche for us as well. So yeah, we've done all sorts of recruitment campaigns recently, but the three niches are still nursing, trucking, and warehouse and manufacturing workers.
Well, when people start watching this podcast, don't be surprised if you get a few more of those calls of, hey, you do those three, can you do this one? Right?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah. Maybe we'll get lucky and find another one like we did before.
That's fantastic, Bob. I love it. So now I kind of want to get into your insights, right? So as you look down the road and you see shifts like this and the ability for you to leverage that you're using technology that probably not a lot of people understood how to do, the geo fencing stuff that you do. But when you start to look down the road, do you see the industry still like starting to niche more? What do you see the industry shifting, and what have you seen?
Well, a lot of the stuff is old stuff that stays the same and still works. When mobile marketing started, it was not advertising because people didn't even have smartphones yet. It was text messaging. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you said mobile marketing, people would say, oh, those are those spam texts I get on my phone, right? And still to this day, I would say of all the things you can do, SMS and MMS, text message marketing, is the greatest ROI of anything you can do. If you do it 100%. Right and you do it consistently. And it's just because it's so darn cheap.
Yeah. And everybody opens, like it's what, 95+% open rate on that stuff?
Yeah, compared to email, which is a 22% open rate. The statistics I use is that 90% of all text messages, even promotional ones, are opened and read within 15 minutes of receipt. Texting remains a big part. We try and work it into any campaign that we can do. Now, you have to have an opt-in. And you don't want to mess around with that. You want to follow the laws because there's some pretty significant fines if you're not. But so that's an example of something that I think has stayed the course now for 15 years and remains a big part of the industry.
I think it's only going to get better. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And eliminating the spam, because we all get so much spam on our email. We don't get too much spam on our text. I think that those rules actually have helped us to get more engagement with the texting.
I agree. And as they, I know they kicked the can for another year on the some of the TCPA laws. But when they actually go into effect, I actually think it's even going to get better. It's going to eliminate spam. You're going to have verifications like you have on X, and badges like you have. Again, that's coming, but it's not here yet. But I just think that, to your point, it works. It still works. And I think it's going to get better.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So I told you I was going to ask you a little bit as you look into your crystal ball down the next 1 to 2 years. Where do you see the industry going?
Well, everyone fears for their jobs because AI is here. So I don't think you can avoid AI. And I can tell you, when I was a kid, going back a ways, calculators were invented when I was in elementary school. And the thought process back then was, well, no one's ever going to learn math because they have calculators now. You can't bring a calculator to school. And today, you go to any engineering class in college, you don't even need a calculator. It's on your phone now, right? But that was the thought process then. So I don't think AI is going to squash jobs. There are some that it's going to be more difficult, like being a copywriter. I don't know that I'll ever hire a full-time copywriter again with what AI can do, but I believe in good copywriting. But AI can get you 50% of the way there, and then you take it from that point. So we've used AI for copywriting, and what I think the real opportunity is, one of the things that's made it rougher for us in truck driver recruitment and some of the other areas that we specialize in is, over the years, especially Meta and Google, they've taken away some of the targeting that they used to have. And it's because people have done some unscrupulous things that weren't really what they should be doing, discrimination based on age, race, sex, and that kind of thing. And so they've been forced into taking away a lot of that targeting. So to supplement that, when we do display advertising, we're purchasing third-party data that helps us zone in on the right person, because we don't get that anymore from Facebook. By making that, and the beauty of it is, look, every business can run their own Facebook and Google campaign anymore. They've made it very easy. We think we can run it a little better than the average business person. But let's face it, they can do it themselves. But what they can't do is that they're never going to subscribe to Nielsen data, right? That wouldn't be economical. But the fact that we can amortize it over many customers makes it worthwhile, and we can really get our message in front of the right people. So I think the next step to that is going to be AI finding us those right people, because it's going to have so much more data at its fingertips, and it can create lists for us probably at a lower CPM than we're buying them now, and more accurate data that will have both demographic and psychographic and interest targeting as well.
100%, right? And for most people on my podcast that know, that's co-founder in another business, and that's exactly what we do. We have a data business and we sell that. So I'm very, very familiar with what you're talking about. Very few people. So how about for automations? Because to me, when I think about one of the biggest things that's changed for the better in marketing is the ability to nurture through automations. Do you subscribe to that? How do you feel about the automations and the ability to do follow-up campaigns at a better level?
Yeah. Really good question. And I'm an adjunct professor teaching graduate students as well. And I emphasize this with both my staff and my students. And they probably get sick of me talking about it all the time. He's mentioning this again, geez. But I really believe in it. And, with my staff, I tell them all the time, we should get better every month. Because as we accumulate statistically accurate data, we need to use that. And we have a huge advantage in our industry versus the guy who's selling outdoor advertising. Because you buy a billboard, a lot of people drive by. Probably a very, very small percentage of those people are going to be interested in your product.
Right.
We should be able to get our service, our message in front of those people that are most interested in the product. And a quick plug here. This is my book, and I entitled it Relevance Raises Response. And the reason why is that the more relevant that message is to the consumer, the more likely they're going to engage with that ad. And that's what mobile and digital can do so well.
And I love that you titled your book that, because for anyone that doesn't know about, and especially for the algorithms out there, but especially Meta, is that the algorithm works on recency and relevance. And what you just said is 100% spot on.
Yep. I like the alliteration too. Isn't that what that is? Alliteration, the 3 R's?
Yeah. And we'll put definitely a link to your book below the podcast. Bob, so listen, this is phenomenal. So talking about these things, is there any other thing that in your mind that the audience should know about where advertising and marketing is going? Because you do it at a level that most people that we talk to don't. And I love that you're doing geofencing. I love that you've niched. It's what makes you're at Purple Gator special in this area. And we have a lot of folks that are reading this and they're thinking about their product, right? If they're a SaaS or if they're an e-com, right? How they implement some of the things you talked about. Do you see the competitive landscape getting even tougher as we go forward? How do you feel about that?
What I see is more niche type services being provided, lead generation for B2B, and really niching down on everything. And think about, where I started my career in television advertising. With television advertising versus streaming TV today, right? Back in the day, if you wanted to reach men 25 to 54, the best place to reach them would be to buy an ad on NFL football, right?
Absolutely.
But 40% of the NFL audience is female. So
crazy, right?
Yeah, so television could kind of do that, but what we can do with data is so much better. And I always think back about, if I'm watching a broadcast TV show and I get served an ad for a feminine hygiene product, well, I don't have any use for that product. That was a very wasted impression. I'm not going to go buy that for anybody. I'm never going to use it. What a wasted impression. Well, that wasted impression would never happen on mobile and digital, right? Because we can find the right person. And then the more layers of data you can put on there, the better it is. Much like that example that I gave of when it comes to trucking, we found the best engagement we got was on the conservative website Breitbart. And unfortunately, we had some retailers that would come back and say, no, we don't want to advertise on Breitbart. I know it works, but we're getting a lot of pushback. But, in that case, it was getting data that allowed us to zero in on the things that work the best. And that's why we should improve every month.
Yeah. And I love that you're hitting on this, because we've always said you want to put the right message or the right ad in front of the right person at the right time. And you're taking it a step further, and it's, in the right place, right? Places where they live. You want to meet people online where they live, right? And if they're in sports, you want to see them on ESPN.com or CBSSports.com. But if they're, like you said, if they're conservative, they'll be on some of those websites. If they're liberal, other websites. It's just wherever they are, you want your message and your ad to be in front of them. And that only happens with data and targeting.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
One of my lines is we target people, not places. And what I mean by that is, if you buy a billboard, you're targeting a place. And anyone who drives by, some will be interested in your service, some not, right? But by targeting people, not places, let's go back to that male 25 to 54 audience that we used to buy on NFL football on TV. Well, today, I don't care if I find that 35-year-old male on ESPN's app where I would expect him to be, or whether I find him on Good Housekeeping's website. If he's the right person, I'm going to serve him an ad if it's the right price and he's the right person to target.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going, Bob, is to people-based targeting, right? I think that's where it's shifting, to your point. And the neat part about where I see it going, and you can corroborate on this, is that personalization at scale, which means if you can get to targeting the right person, you can personalize the experience for them online. And it just makes it all the more likely that they convert into whatever promotion we're talking about.
That's relevance raises response right there.
I love it. I love it. That's it. I'm definitely going to read your book, which is fantastic. So last couple questions, which I said I was going to ask you is, one, again, do you have any personal or business stories of AI that you've used, right? Other than the copywriting thing, right? At least you have something you've played with there. But any other stories that founders and CEOs might find interesting?
Yeah, I think we're all using it for copywriting now. And as a university professor, sometimes I get papers turned in that I can spot AI a mile away because I use it every day.
Right.
I never tell the students you can't use it. It's up to the individual professors to make that choice. But you can use it as a good starting point, but don't give me 100%, AI. And it's the same thing with copywriting. You can see in AI copywriting. And the thing about AI is it doesn't give you any new ideas, right? It only goes out and gets data and information that's already on the web. So, I would never rely 100% on AI, even for copywriting. But in terms of the new stuff that we've been able to implement for it is if we have a real niche opportunity, we're recruiting for, been some real niche jobs that we've been able to recruit for that only needed maybe 1, 2, or 3 people for that job. We have been able to use AI to find jobs of people across the country. Like maybe there's only 500 people in the country that do this job. We could find them and target them, and we can do that through telemarketing as well as email marketing, and then back it up with the targeted advertising that we can do on social media and display. So that's kind of been one innovation that my staff has worked through that's helped us with those really niche jobs.
That's really cool. That is really, really cool. So, all right, last question is, if I could give you a magic wand to help you clear one thing or make one thing happen to either meet or exceed your next 12-month growth goals for Purple Gator, what would that be?
Well, I look at our Google business profile and I see all 5-star reviews. So I know that at least those customers that are responding there have been happy with our service. The difficulty for any company that's scaling is finding the best salespeople who can convert and close. That, I think, has been the most difficult thing for us. It's something that, I'm concentrating on here in 2024 or 2025 it is, for continued growth over 2024 is, I'm the most successful salesperson. I've been doing it my whole life, and people love to talk to the president, CEO of the company, but, I can't do it all. And
you can't scale that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I have to position the company better for the future when maybe I want to step back in the future. So, for that
and hit some of those extra sporting events like we talked about.
And not be working 14-hour days.
Yeah.
So anyway, that'll be, the goal for 2025 is to really beef up the sales team and get some people that know the industry. And, it's hard to sell this product. If you want to go buy a Tesla because you love Tesla, you can have a really lousy salesperson, right? And you're still going to buy the Tesla because it's a great car, right? But in the case of our service, you're only as good as the sales rep who's talking to you the first time, right?
Yeah.
we may have the best people behind the scenes in the world, but
Right.
if you don't
But the
get
face is the sales rep. Yeah.
past the sales pitch, you're never going to find that out. So that's going to be part of the concentration here for 25.
I love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. And again, part of, our ongoing challenge hurdles and accelerators for growth. Bob, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for spending the time with us. Can you tell everybody how to get engaged with Purple Gator?
Sure, purplegator.com. And you can also email us, sales@purplegator.com, or you can dial 1-888-76-GATOR. Like how we worked in the 76 there, being from Philly.
Yes, I love it. It's fantastic. Bob, thank you for sharing your insights and your story with us. And I'm sure we're going to have you back on a future episode, but definitely part of the Founders Cast podcast as well. So for everyone listening, that's the end of our episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you, Bob, and thank you to our audience.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.